Hey everybody, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We got to check all of our systems right now. I think we're good to go on the radio, but I want to make sure that we're kicking it off on all of our social media because we had a problem last night, and I don't know why. But yeah, seems like we're there, and we're good to go, and we're good to go on social media. Okay, technology is it's super awesome when it works, and it's a pain in the rear when it doesn't work. So we're good to go tonight. I hope everybody's good. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're live in Lubbock, Texas, the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios. We're live on social media. We're live on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM. We're at 987radio.com streaming out there. I want to apologize for last night's show. If you listen to it, I was all discombobulated because my clock stopped, and Bob, I think, got it all fixed today. One little glitch we still got to finish with, but I know he's been working super hard on that, trying to get that going. And we're doing for you guys that are new to the show, and I've got several new patients that have come into the office that might be listening to the show and are new to the show. There's a lot of the, there's things going on. What we do right now is we do a live radio show and we do a live social media show, and it's coming to you as it is. It's not edited, as you can tell. It's just live, and usually it takes place right after I just have finished with patients. So I happened to go to Littlefield this afternoon on Tuesdays, and I go over there and I see patients in Littlefield, which I have done since we've had that office since October of 2002. So we're this October, which we got a ways to go, but this October will be 23 years that we've been over in Littlefield. And I go over there on Tuesday afternoons. I got a group of people that I take care of. I love them to death. They're great people. And we're going to continue that office. We got a young doctor that's going to chiropractic school that's going to be joining us over there. I'm super excited for him. And he grew up in Littlefield, and he wants to serve the community of Littlefield and be part of the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And so we're going to groom him and help him and set him up. And so that office is not going anywhere anytime soon, as far as I know. We'll keep that going. But I go over there and then I come back. And so I've had a little bit more time in the office today before the show started. But most of the time we just come right off the floor. We just come right off the floor and we just talk to you about health. So it's raw. It's sometimes messed up. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying. Sometimes I sound like an idiot, but you know what? It's just real. It's just a way. It's just a way that it goes. It's real stuff. We're bringing to you every night, and it's as real as you can get. And it's not prettied up. We don't put makeup on it. We don't fix our mistakes. Sometimes I go home and I got in the car last night. And I just was like, that was a train wreck. Like I was everywhere with that one. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to talk about health. There are some people that listen to our show that are not in Lubbock, that they're all over the place, and I really appreciate that. I hope we're helping you guys live a healthier life. A lot of the things that we're doing, like we show and we talk about, we do that on Facebook and YouTube and X. And so you guys on the radio, sometimes you miss out on some of the diagrams or some of the pictures that we talk about. And I know you guys are you've been at it for a long enough time that you can go to the Walk by Faith Facebook page and you can check things out. You can come to the Rock Health and Wellness Center Facebook page. You can go to @Health from the Rock, the @ @Health from the Rock on YouTube. Now they're all there, and some of them are good and some of them are horrible. But I think if you listen to them over a long period of time, you might make your life better, and that's all I care about. I just care about getting everybody to be as healthy as possible. You can take what I say, you can run it through your filter that of your own, what you know about health. You can run it through your medical doctor's filter. You can run it through your physical therapist's filter. You can run it through your chiropractor back home or your chiropractor here in town, as far as that is concerned. And see if it makes any sense to you. If you do, then hopefully it makes your life better. I had a new patient that I did a doctor's report today with, and this is all new stuff. They Her and her husband, they grew up and lived their life in America. They followed all the things that all the people do in America, and some of the conversations we had, it was really cute. She was trying to follow me as hard as as hard as she could, but it was a little strange. This whole conversation, when about why, like, I took a Tylenol once in 2007. I took we got to talk about acid reflux and Rolaids and Tums and all that sort of thing. And I just remember the journey that I went through on that. And I just remember the process. That I just remember being a kid, and this is the same thing I told her, and I've told you guys this before. I remember being a kid, 20, early 20s, got married. You start to be an adult. You're a man. You're just like, all right, I'm grown up now, and I'm married. I'm a man, and I got to make some serious decisions. Because my grandpa was a Tums guy. He used to sit in his chair, but after he retired, he'd sit in his chair. He had a little spittoon, that he'd have a chew of tobacco or something, and he'd have a spittoon by him, and then he had a bottle of Tums that sat right next to his chair, and it was kind of down to that little nightstand looking thing next to his chair or coffee table, whatever. And he had a bottle of Tums that he would have down there. And then my dad was a Rolaids guy. And so dad came along and he was a Rolaids guy. And that's kind of difficult for a young man to decide, right? It's kind of like, what are we supposed to do? Because it's like, what if your grandpa drove a Chevrolet and your dad drove a Ford? Like, what are you supposed to do now? Like, you're a young man now. You got to make a decision. Like, what are you supposed to do to make the right decision, right? So I remember having to make that decision. I remember thinking, am I going to be like my grandpa and have Tums, or I'm going to be like my dad and take Rolaids? And I was like, I'm just going to be like my dad and take Rolaids. That was my choice. So I just started in on Rolaids. I never one time thought to myself, why are both of those old men taking that stuff? I never one time thought to myself, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, why would I? Is anybody taking Rolaids or Tums? What do you do that for? Well, you got acid in your esophagus. Well, why do you have acid in your esophagus? Well, you should not have acid in your esophagus, right? So if you do, something's wrong. I don't know. I just think that's funny. After all these years, I just think that's funny. I think it's funny to think about that and to think about how it was so matter of fact to me between the Tums and the Rolaids that I never thought for a second, what, wait a minute, neither one of those are right. Like, why would you be doing that in the first place, right? And listen, we broke it down. We just worked on it the other day, right? What do we need? We need acid in our stomach, right? Well, I don't mind going over it again. I mean, but think about it. Just think about it, because all of these principles just apply the same exact way. If you just ask yourself why, right? Just ask yourself why. And I'm gonna go over some exercise here in just a minute. So I got some of that stuff written out. But what is going on? And I'm not gonna draw this very good, but okay, so let's just kind of just. I'm not a very good artist, but let's just say for a second that right there is your stomach. There's your stomach. Here's going into your small intestine down here, and then you got your esophagus up here, and you got acid inside your stomach. Now, if you believe in innate intelligence, then you'll believe that there is a reason that there is acid in your stomach. I mean, it's kind of like, wait a minute, why would God create me? First of all, you either believe in creation or you believe in evolution, one or the other. You can't ride the fence on that. So if one of those two things happened, okay, if you're an evolutionist, then you just know that we kill off the weaknesses of ourselves and we manifest ourselves over time. And so we get, the weak traits go away and the strong traits stick around. So the strong trait of acid in your stomach has stuck around over millions and millions of years. Okay, fine. If that's the way you see it. If you're a creationist and you're like God created you and there's a spirit, there's an innate intelligence, and there's an intelligence inside your body, you would say to yourself, okay, there's supposed to be acid in my stomach. There's supposed to be. Okay, why would I want to disrupt that? Why would I want to take these little dudes down here at the bottom are called, just basically very general, they're called proton pumps. They pump the protons into the stomach, which makes it more acidic. That's basically how you do. You're pumping the acid out of, just to be general, you're pumping the acid out of the proton pumps. So what is all this acid reflux medication that we take? It's proton pump inhibitors. What does inhibit mean? To keep from happening. Healthy people inhibit. Okay, but that's what this drug is doing. It's turning off the pumps. It's turning off the pumps. Now here's the deal. It's telling God himself that you don't know what you're doing inside the body. Like, God, you are wrong. God is wrong. Just go ahead and say it. God is wrong because God is the one that put acid in your stomach. And so he must have messed it up. Like, something's wrong because we need to turn off all of these pumps so that we don't make any more acid. Now, what's going to happen to the digestive process? What are we going to do when we dump food into, here comes the food, and it jumps into the stomach, and there's no acid in the stomach. All that acid's been turned off. Well, what you get told is that you've got too much acid in your stomach. Well, your body's making a mistake. See, you just happen to be one of those people who just is defective, and so what's happening is you've got too much acid in your stomach, and it's causing problems for you, and you got to get that acid turned off. So we better take a proton pump inhibitor. That's pharma for you right there. That is how those people make money. That's pharma. That's big pharma. That's what they do. They lie to you about stuff like that. And they tell you that you are unusual because you've got too much stomach acid. So you got to get rid of it, right? No. And now you take your food and you put it in there. And when you put your food into your stomach and you don't have enough acid, then when that food goes into the small intestine, it's not ready for absorption. So you don't absorb the nutrients from the food. And now what ends up happening? You start breaking down. Your muscles start breaking down. Your nerves start breaking down. Your tissue, all kinds of tissue break down. And then what happens? You get old and stiff. And then you're like, well, I don't know why that happened. I guess I got neuropathy in my feet for nothing. I just was unlucky. I got neuropathy. Well, I wonder why you got neuropathy. You're not absorbing any of your nutrients in your stomach because you're sucking all down those Rolaids and those Tums all day long to try to decrease that acid in your stomach. And why are you doing that? Well, because you have acid in your esophagus. Now, you are not supposed to have acid in your esophagus. You're supposed to have acid in your stomach, right? And there's a little sphincter right there. There's a little muscle. There's a little valve that shuts down when that acid hits it at the bottom, and it shuts down. And so it'll shut down and it'll close off, and it'll keep that acid from going up in your esophagus. Now, if you've got acid in your esophagus, you better get it out of there because you're going to end up with burned holes in your esophagus because those cells are not supposed to have acid on them, right? But what did we cover last week or two? We covered the brain. We covered the right side and the left side of the brain. And we said the left side of the brain is parasympathetic or rest and recover. That's actually when you eat, is when you're under parasympathetic rest and recover. That's when you actually eat. You don't eat when you're under sympathetic fight or flight. That's on the right side. You don't eat in the middle of a tiger fight. You eat after the tiger fight. Just watch the water buffalo. Just watch National Geographic when the lions attack the water buffalo. They're eating, then all of a sudden they're not because they're running away from the tiger. And as soon as the tiger catches one, or the lion catches one of those buffalo, where do the rest of the herd go? Where does the herd go after that? They just go right over there. They do not run 14 miles away from the lions. They just run right over there, and then they start eating again because the threat is over. So you eat in parasympathetic. Well, what nerve supply goes from the parasympathetic or goes to that little sphincter that makes that sphincter shut down? It's under parasympathetic nerve supply. You got to have your parasympathetic nervous system ramped up and working in order to shut that little valve off so that you keep that acid out of your esophagus. That's in your left hemisphere. So where do we get this whole right side and left side brain activity? See that? You got if you don't have right side to left side brain activity, you get stuck over here in the right hemisphere. You're anxious. Then your anxiety drives your sympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system keeps your parasympathetic nervous system from closing off your stomach acid into your esophagus. And so what do? You just go get yourself a Rolaider of Tums, depending on what your grandpa or your dad did. Get you a proton pump inhibitor. And I was like, so we were talking about it. It's really cute today because we were talking about it, and they were taking a prescription proton pump inhibitor, and they said, what do you mean? You mean if I was to get healthy? They said, what? Well, any of these supplements interfere with our medicine. And I said, yeah. I said, when you get healthy, it'll interfere with your medicine. You'll have to quit taking that medicine when you're healthy. You don't want to give that to a healthy person and make them sick. And she laughed, and she's like, she said that, we'll just take Tums. And I was like, nope. She was trying so hard. But anyway, that's a great little design. I mean, that's a great little lesson right there about how that works. You want the acid in your stomach. You want to keep the acid in your stomach. Matter of fact, we use Zypan, which is hydrochloric acid. We want it to increase. I want your digestive tract to be working right. So that's what we do for digestive problems to start off, Zypan or Zymex, whichever one we want to go to. And then we want that to go, but we also want to adjust your spine. We also want to make sure that your brain is working properly so that your brain is right to left. Get out of that stress. Let your left side work. Let your parasympathetic nervous system rise. If you guys have ever heard of or taken a heart rate variability, that'll give you some. We have it here in the office. We do heart rate variability here in the office, but one of the things that we know about all disease processes and death and all the rest of it is just like the article we went over last night that you didn't get to hear because everything was crazy. But there's an increased sympathetic tone into all diseases, and heart rate variability will tell you that parasympathetic dampening, parasympathetic decrease leads to chronic disease. We're not resting and recovering. So we're going to get to that chronic disease state if we're not handling that brain. You study it long enough, you'll start to understand brain first, everything else second. Acid reflux is secondary to brain. Now, you can fill that stomach up with sugar, and it'll increase your problems as well. And but that's where I have come. I have since I'm in the last 30 years of life, I've come from the idea of which one of those I was going to take to the idea of I'm not ever taking any of that stuff. I'm not going to decrease my stomach acid and tell God he's an idiot. Like, that's basically what I'm doing. That's the same reason I'm not taking a Tylenol. Why would I take a Tylenol if the reason I got a fever was because my innate intelligence is fighting off of a virus or a bacteria? Or it's because I've got sore muscles or sore joints. Why don't I figure out what's going on with those sore muscles or sore joints? Yeah, that's some good stuff right there. So, all right, let's move along. I didn't mean to. That's not where I was going today. So, uh, but what I am going to show you is that's a cool little article I got right here. This is pretty sweet. This came from Nature Magazine, and Nature Magazine is all about. Um, they're real scientists, so they only believe in evolution and all that stuff, and they'll say stuff in their magazine. But I'm okay with that. I can listen to them say that stuff and understand how things work in my world. And so I saw this right here, mitochondria on the move. I thought this was pretty cool. Cells are swapped. This comes from Nature Magazine, right off the press. I don't even know uh, what version it is. I'm not even going to look it up, but I just got it. I get an email from them, and they send me, their local digital thing, and so the addition. So it's brand new stuff. Cells are swapping their energy factories. What does this mean for people's health? This is pretty cool. There's unexpected movement in the world of cell biology, specifically with energy factories known as mitochondria. Ever since they were discovered in the mid-19th century, mitochondria have been known as organelles that reside inside cells. But that textbook picture now seems to be wrong. An explosion of research is challenging the mitochondria's long-standing image as an exclusively cellular organelles, meaning they may be multicellular organelles. That means they might move around from cell to cell. Now, this is not happening in humans, but it is happening in mice. This has come Jonathan Brestoff, an immunologist who studies metabolism at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. In other words, the supposedly static energy factories now seem to be expert travelers, skipping from one cell to another on demand. The mitochondrial transfer has been observed in a wide variety of cells and in organisms as diverse as yeast, mollusks, and rodents. It's really exciting to see, says Jeffrey Spees, a stem cell biologist at the University of Vermont in Burlington. It's not yet clear why mitochondria are so mobile. Some studies have hinted that cells donate their mitochondria to the neighbors during times of need. In cellular emergencies, newly arrived mitochondria might kickstart tissue repair, fire up the immune system, or rescue distressed cells from death. Other researchers suggest that mitochondrial transfer can be a lethal weapon that cancer cells deploy to gain an advantage. But what this means for human cells is still a mystery. Researchers have yet to capture the process inside the human body, so they don't know for sure if it happens in people. We don't have the technology yet to witness this happening, he says. The fact hasn't stopped researchers from exploring how to leverage mitochondrial transfer. So I think that's pretty cool right there. It's like that mitochondria might move from cell to cell. So the cells, you don't remember what we talked about? I think it was last week. Yeah, where we talked about those eicosanoids and the cell transfer. There's so much stuff going on inside the body that we just don't know. That's why I say all the time, I'll probably spend my entire life. I know for a fact. I won't probably. I'll spend the rest of my life studying all this stuff, and I'll get to the end, and it'll just be one little piece of the whole puzzle. It's like it is really, really amazing how the human body is made, and we don't really understand that. We don't understand all the things that are going on, so you kind of have to move along and find the things that are happening. It's kind of cool to see them happen, but that mitochondria is the power plant of your cells. So it's interesting to think maybe that you move that power plant around. If the cells in your liver need more energy, maybe they get some mitochondria from somewhere else. If the cells in your muscles need, move around, or if the cells in your brain, it's making that energy. Right? And so that's an important thing there is the mitochondria. And I wanted, since we were talking about mitochondria, and I had a conversation today about metformin, because that was one of the questions that I got asked today. that someone said, "Okay, doc, what do you think of metformin?" And I said, "Well, first of all, that's between you and your medical doctor. I can't. I'm not a pharmaceutical guy. I can't put you on or take you off any pharmaceuticals. It's not my job. It's not within my scope of practice. We do not do that at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. That is between you and your medical doctor. Now, if you ask me what I think of metformin personally, I can tell you that I think it's garbage. And I disagree, and there's some high-powered doctors that disagree with me on that, right? Dr. Lustig is one of them. And I have lots of respect for Dr. Lustig, but I've heard him say it, that he's a fan of it. But I'll show you what it does, and I'll show you how it works. And we've done a whole show on it, but we could do as soon as we get back from the break, we'll do just a quick little conversation on metformin. We're not going to stay on it long, but I'll show you what happens and how the way it works is it chokes down your mitochondria, these little mitochondria that we're talking about right here. So you guys can stick around with us. We do that. And then I want to show some x-rays. I want to show an article review, and I want to show some x-rays on the other side of the break. And I want to talk about some structure and function things along with a little bit of exercise conversation. So you guys stick around with us. We'll be right back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. And this is going to be a little wild, this break that we got going on tonight, because they had to rebuild the entire computer system at the radio station. And the guys that run the software, apparently they loaded the wrong software or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but everything I'm listening to in my headset is like, slow down. It's the wrong speed. And so it's all warped. It's like a cyborg or something in there. It's like it's all warped. All the commercials are warped and the speed is warped. And so Bob was checking everything out at the beginning of the show to make sure that it sounded properly. And so he let me know it's all sounding fine over the radio, but inside my head, it's not sounding fine. So I'm not even going to attempt to try to talk or teach anything through the middle of this break. We'll just have to take a second and take a break. But you can send me anything. If you got a subject or something you want to talk about and you want to send it in, then please do that. I'd be glad to talk about it. If there's something on your mind, if there's something I've said that you don't understand, and you're thinking, he lost me on that. Feel free to send me a message. You can send me a text. No one else will see it but me. 806-794-0400. I think I can actually, let's see. No, I don't have it. I don't have it on there. I think I can put it on there though. Fancy. It's like fancy stuff we got. You just put it on there. But yeah, if you want to send me a text and you're like, I didn't get that, or what does that mean, or anything like that, feel free to do that. Because I want you to get as much of this stuff as you can so that you understand what we're talking about. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're live right here in the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios. We've been talking about mitochondria a little bit. We've been talking about, why I'm not a fan of metformin, right? And so I wanted to talk about it because I wanted to show you what it does, and I want to show you why. I want to make sure that that you understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, and because you can go to the mechanism of action right here. You can go to the NIH. And I'm not going to spend time on this because I know we've covered it, and I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. But you can go you could go to the mechanism of action. Say metformin mechanism of action NIH, and it's 2 or 3 articles down. It'll tell you that it's this one right here, and it says metformin and the mitochondrial control of hepatic gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis. Genesis is in the beginning, just like in the Bible. Genesis is the first of the Bible, right? So the genesis of things, the beginning of things. Neo means new, and gluco means glucose. So the genesis of new glucose is what that word means right there. Gluconeogenesis is the word. And that reminds me of that, like sitting in chiropractic school right at the beginning of trial 1 by myself in the library, thinking about these big old words and being intimidated by these big old words because I didn't understand. I didn't take a lot of chemistry in college, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can understand all this stuff. And I was sitting there by myself, and I just remember thinking, all right, I need to know where the line of scrimmage is. Like, where's the offense and where's the defense? What are they trying to say with all these words? And then I stopped for just a second and I thought to myself, dude, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. And I knew all of them since I was a little kid. I started singing my ABCs when I was little. I know all the letters in the alphabet. You can't trick me. So now all I got to do is figure out what you're talking about. Given that gluconeogenesis, okay, gluco is glucose, the beginning of new glucose. Why? Why would you have gluconeogenesis? Why is that a thing? Why would the liver make glucose? Ask yourself that question. Because this might actually take longer than I thought. But let me hide this text line so you guys don't go crazy. But this might take just a little bit more time because this is worth it. And we won't get off into metformin so much, but we will talk about this because it's the same thing that's going on in your stomach, right? It's the same thing to say, okay, why do I have this? Why do I have acid in my stomach? Well, why do we have? If we're looking at gluconeogenesis, if that's what we're talking about right now, then okay, what does it mean? Making new glucose in the liver, and let's just make it simple, and let's just say that that's a horrible liver. Hang on. I can do a little bit better than that. But not much. But let's just say that's your liver right there. Okay, that is the liver. And inside the liver is mitochondria. That's what we just talked about. And mitochondria make ATP, which is the power plant of the cell. That's the energy. The ATP is the energy of the cell. Okay, so gluconeogenesis means that the stored glycogen in the liver, the stored glucose in the liver, is being released back into the bloodstream. Your liver is making new glucose, and it's basically dumping that glucose into the bloodstream. Now, the question is, why is it doing that? That is the ultimate question that people don't want to ask. Why? Why is it doing that? Well, I'll tell you why it does that. It's because what does the brain need? What does the brain need? 3 things. Number 1, glucose. Number 2, oxygen. Number 3, excitability. Excitability. Okay, that's the three things the brain needs. So the brain, if the brain needs glucose, there's multiple systems inside the the body that's going to make sure that the brain gets glucose. This is not going to be some sort of by chance. Well, we just ran out of glucose. We didn't eat anything, and so now we're just out of glucose, right? That's the first point that we should make when we're talking about something like this. We should realize that the reason that we have this is because the number one reason, there's multiple reasons, but the number one reason that the liver will release glucose back into the bloodstream is because if the glucose gets low in the bloodstream and that fires through the brain and you don't have any substitutes like ketones or anything else is going along, you better get some glucose into the bloodstream. You better get some glucose into the muscles if you need them for fight or flight response. So the glucose release by the liver into the bloodstream is not a mistake. It's innate intelligence. It's there by design. It is not a mistake. Okay? So that's the first thing that we have to know about when we're talking about metformin, is that gluconeogenesis is there for a reason. It's not a mistake. God made it that way. We didn't invent it. We didn't start it late. God made it that way. Okay, so here, listen to this article. Given that gluconeogenesis is an energy-intensive process, consuming 6 ATP equivalents per molecule of glucose synthesized, meaning you got to eat up 8 ATP to make 1 molecule of glucose. Hepatocytes need to balance the demand for ATP with supply, with the latter primarily provided by mitochondria. Metformin accumulates within the mitochondria to concentrations up to 1,000-fold higher than in the extracellular medium, because metformin carries a positive charge and the membrane potentials across the plasma membrane and mitochondrial intermembrane drive metformin into the cell and subsequently into the mitochondria. The most intensively studied mitochondrial action of metformin is the inhibition of complex 1 in the respiratory chain. That's the only thing that in the end of the sentence. The inhibition of complex 1 in the respiratory chain, which suppresses ATP production. The inhibition of complex 1 of the respiratory chain, which suppresses ATP production. Now, what does that mean? Well, you got an assembly line. There's an assembly line of molecules, of structures. There's an assembly line of structures inside a cell, inside the mitochondria, right there. There's an assembly line of structures that's blown up. There's a picture blown up right there. This comes from rsscience.com. Okay, give them credit. I want them to have their credit. rsscience.com. I just looked it up. All I did was complex mitochondrial complexes and images, and I just found it right there. Okay, you've got multiple structures: complex 1, complex 2, complex 3, complex 4. So what's happening? We're moving electrons. Basically, we're moving molecules across from one to the next. One of them is pumping in, one of them's pumping out, one of them's changing it, one's moving it over. We've got a process. We got an assembly line. It's just like a Ford Motor Company plant where they're making the Model A back in the day. Everybody's on the assembly line. Just take it down the road. You do your part, send it to the next guy, send it to the next guy, send it to the next guy. The end result is ATP production. That's mitochondrial respiration. That's the electron transport chain. That's the energy of the cell. That's how that works. We're trying to make sure that the mitochondria can keep that cell functioning with all the energy that it needs. Because if you run out of ATP, that cell's going to stop functioning. If you're done with ATP, then that cell's it's not going to function properly. That's why this layer, Now, this is a mitochondrial layer right here, but that's your phospholipid bilayer. That's your omega-6-3 ratio in your cell wall that's so important to make sure you protect your mitochondria. So what is that article saying to us? The mechanism of action says it comes 1,000 times more than what it's supposed to be, and it drives, because of concentration levels, it drives that metformin into the process that is the inhibition of complex 1 in the respiratory chain, which suppresses ATP production. What is mitochondria? What is metformin doing inside your liver? It's clogging up complex 1. It's driving, you see the old cop shows and stuff where they put a banana in the tailpipe to clog up the engine, right? Or we're gonna stick we got a big old gear running, and we're just gonna go jam some sort of log in the middle of the gear and just shut the whole thing down, right? That's how it works. That's how metformin works. It clogs up one of the most important things in the history of all mankind, the mitochondria. It clogs up complex 1 of mitochondria, which chokes down the chain, which now decreases the energy. So now we don't have enough ATP any longer because we need 6 of those ATP, remember, to make one glucose molecule. And so now we've run out of ATP. And so what happens? We choke it down. We choke down the mitochondria, choke it down, X it out. We X out the ATP. Now we can't get enough ATP to create a glucose molecule. So now what are we going to do? We're not going to dump any glucose into the bloodstream because we've got too much glucose in the bloodstream in the first place. And so now we're not going to do that. And so what are they going to do? They're going to run a clinically controlled trial. This evidence-based medicine. Remember why I'm so passionately with questioning evidence-based medicine is because it's jacked up. Because it's like, well, look, dude, the metformin decreases the glucose in the bloodstream, and I'm like, okay. And I told the person today, I can slow your fastball down by breaking your forearm too. Like, I can keep a dude from throwing a fastball by breaking his forearm. That's easy enough, right? It's like, what? That's not right. You shouldn't break his forearm to keep his fastball from throwing. Yeah, well, we shouldn't choke down the mitochondria in order to keep the glucose out of the bloodstream. Why don't we address the fact that there's too much glucose in the bloodstream in the first place? Now, we don't want to. Now, if you don't want to, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care if that's the choice you make. I can tell you where you're headed if you don't do that. I can tell you that you're headed to fatty liver disease. I can tell you that you're headed to neuropathy in your feet. I can tell you that you're going into blindness. I can tell you that you're going to die from the diabetes that you've taken and all because it's like, dude, I've seen it. My father-in-law died from it, and my dad had diabetes. I've seen the misery that goes along with that process right there. So it's pharma again. There they are. That's their way of decreasing the glucose in your bloodstream. Or you could just eat eggs. You could solve type 2 diabetes in a couple weeks, like completely eliminated, right? It's like there's a different way that you could do that. So that's all I got. I didn't mean to get off on that, but I think it's pretty cool stuff. And you should question some of those things. Like, if there's no options, then fine. There's no options. If, like, at the end of my dad's life, I wanted him to smoke weed and do whatever he could because there was no options. It was too late. He was already in too much pain. But if you got options today, and what you're doing is you're saying, well, I want to eat my cinnamon roll, but I'll just take my metformin. I want to eat my pancakes with my syrup, but I'll just take my metformin. I want to keep drinking all of my sodas with all that sugar in it, but I'm just going to take my metformin. Well, I tell you where you're headed. It's hell on down there. You hope you die quick, because if you don't die quick, the hell that you're fixing to face down the road, it's bad news. So that's my soapbox for that, and that's all. That's all I got. Whew, man. Sometimes, you see, if you give me a couple of minutes before the show to get prepared, and man, we could get after it on this thing. Okay, where was I going next? Quickly, just a reminder about exercise, because I was in the gym this morning, and we did a good little workout this morning, and man, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate Greg Glassman and CrossFit. I just before I got on the show, my buddies over in Roswell at CrossFit, they posted a post and talked about their addiction. What said, "What are you addicted to?" And it said, it showed all the guys in there working out, guys and gals working out over in Roswell, and so I made a little comment on their post because it's so inspiring to watch them and what they're doing. Right? You can get healthy anywhere on the planet. You don't have to be in Dallas and New York City and Los Angeles and the big cities. You don't have to have all of this. You don't have to have all this high dollar stuff and all this fancy stuff in order to be healthy. You can get healthy in any town, anywhere on the planet. You got a floor, you got feet, and you got a floor. You can start moving, right? So, Greg Glassman started CrossFit. This is the level 1 training guide for CrossFit. I love that stuff, but just thought I would I'd share with you what we did this morning. And it doesn't matter. Anybody can do it. Yesterday, our 6 a.m. class, no, not yesterday. They'll do it on Thursday because there was a couple of absences, so we altered it. But our 8 a.m. class was 75-year-olds and up. They did this same workout. And then we had multiple people throughout the day that came in. They did the same workout. And then this morning, I did this workout. And if you sent this same workout over to Roswell and you made them do it, they would do it. They would just do it faster than we do it. And they would do it with heavier weight than we do it. But at the end of it, they would be breathing hard. And for the rest of the day, they'd be saying, man, that was a good workout. Well, what did we do? We worked off of these 3. If you're trying to build, it's like, can you build yourself a workout? And there's 3 types of energy systems that you can build that workout off of. There's this phosphagen or phosphocreatine energy system, which is a 1 rep max on a bench press, like super strong, super high intensity, quick. It's over in 10 seconds. Bam, done. So you can do a workout and just do max weights. Okay, that's one way. Then the second one is the glycolytic or the lactate, but this is about a 3-minute segment. You kind of set it up on about 3 minutes. You can push it a little bit longer, but you're gonna max out. You're gonna go as hard as you can, and then that's gonna last for about a minute. And then you're going to start to taper off on the other side of it. And so what I did is we did row or bike for 2 minutes. And then we did 10 push press, which is taking the weights and just punching them straight up. Did 10 push press. And then we did 10 ab mat sit-ups. And then we did, for some balance and stuff, we did 2 laps, just down and back with med ball overhead carries. Med ball overhead carry. And we did that on our balance beams. So we have these little rubber, I guess, little bounce beams, styrofoam, I don't know what they are, little bounce that we just put them on the floor. They're squishy. They're like some sort of pad or something, but they're built kind of like with a platform and a flat top across the top of them. And I think they're 5 feet long or something. We got 2 of them, and we just put them side by side. And so we just got our med balls and carried them over our head, and then we had to walk across those balance beams and balance. Now, when the older people walked across the balance beams, I had to walk behind them a little bit and kind of keep them balanced. Some of them don't have quite as good a balance, but so we kind of guide them as they're going through there and talk about, trying to keep your abs tight, squeeze with your toes, and do all those sort of things. Coaching cues to kind of keep them going, um, but yeah, and that's what we did. And then we rested for I rested for about a minute and a half, and we got 4 rounds out of that, and and it was 20 minutes and about 10 seconds, um, and I'm telling you, that's a great workout. It's a high intensity hit workout, so your heart rate's going to get a little bit higher. And if you haven't done workouts, then you need to make sure you need to make sure that you go through the process of building up and taking your time and going slow and all that sort of thing. But a lot of that stuff you could do at home. You could get yourself some dumbbells, and you could do them at home. You could do them in the gym. You can just build you a little process. It's 2 minutes. It took about a minute to get those push presses and all those ab mat sit-ups, and then however many, maybe another minute. So I think maybe that whole thing was ish 4 minutes. Maybe not quite that long, because with the minute and a half rest, I did get 4 rounds in 20 minutes, so it was kind of close. But we're kind of working on that glycolytic pathway of working out. So there's a structure to a good workout. And if you go to any gym, you get a trainer, they'll put that structure together for you. But if you don't have somebody like that, and you want some help with it, then we can work something out where you can get access to our, it's called the Beyond the Whiteboard. If you need some help with that, and we can get you some access to that, and you can learn the movements and all the things that we're doing, and just do that 2 or 3 times a week, and then walk on the other days. Go for a walk. Try to stay on your feet, move your feet, and you'd be surprised at how much better you would get over time just by doing little workouts like that. We're in our 6th year of doing that now. Of here at the Rock Fitness, we do them. We've got workout classes, and it's been great. It's been really good. Control your sugar, watch your diet, make sure that your diet is okay, and then do your workouts. And I mean, it's just amazing how, and it's not that it took 20 minutes. It probably took. I got a little routine that I do, 3-minute bike ride. We do some stretching with the PVC pipe. We do our biplate work where we get on the biplate, do our overhead touches and our pursuits and all that sort of thing. And then I added a little bit of some squats and some push-ups to that before we get started. And yeah, it's for longevity over a long period of time, to do what I have to do for a living and see patients, it's working great. If I had a more physical job, maybe I'd want to add some weight to it. If I was a fireman or police officer or something like that, or if I was working in construction or something like that, maybe I'd want a little bit more weight to it. But me personally, at 54 years old, I don't necessarily want it that way. I mean, my weights are getting heavier as we're going all through the years, but I'm not interested in that particular thing. And so if you can be younger and bulk up and get super fit and giant doing exercises like this, or you can be an 80-year-old person, a stay-at-home mom, whatever you want to be, and you can get pretty fit by doing exercises like this. So that's what we did this morning. It was great. That's all I got for you on that. All right, I want to show you a couple X-rays because let's switch gears for a second. Because this was a sentence that was that I said today that I want to make sure that people really understand. So, and let me move this around a little bit. Yeah, there's bone spurs in the neck, and sometimes you got bone spurs in the neck, but and we don't have a lot of time to cover this tonight, but sometimes you have bone spurs in the neck that are not dangerous. They're not close to the nerves. They're not causing you any problem as far as any sort of danger is. If you have a bone spur on the back part, like we're looking at an X-ray of the cervical spine, we're looking at them from the side, and they're facing in that direction. Here's the jaw line right here. You can kind of see this one. This is a normal curve, and this is one of the patients. What we've got here is we've got this calcification, this kind of candle wax type calcification that's going along the front of each one of these vertebrae. And all that calcification right there is not really a dangerous type of issue from a standpoint of a bone spur. If you say, well, I got a bone spur and it's really bad, then that's the bone spurs on the back, the bone spurs near the spinal cord, the bone spurs near the facets. Those things can be a little dangerous. These on the front, they're not. And I'm out of time tonight, but I'll keep this up for tomorrow, and we'll start here, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how restrictive they are, and then what that's doing to the brain, and that's how that's really disruptive. And it's also a sign that something's not right inside the body. But it's not the same as, oh, I better be careful and getting adjusted, because it's not the same. That's all I got for you. I'll be back tomorrow night. You guys have a great evening.